So, first and foremost, why the heck are we talking about injuries? Well, injuries, they just happen. So, I wanted to give you guys an idea of how many injuries are occurring. Okay? It's not like these injuries are plaguing all of our sports, but they are an issue, so we need to bring it up and talk about it. So, let's talk about it. What is the prevalence of injuries in CrossFit, powerlifting, and Olympic weightlifting? Well, it's about 2.4 to 4.5 injuries per every 1,000 hours of participation. So when people do research on injuries in sports, they talk about how many injuries are occurring per amount of time of participation, right? So if you were to participate in something like CrossFit for 1,000 hours, you'd have somewhere between 2.4 to 4.5 injuries, okay? And what this equates to is about one injury for every 1 or 2 years of participation, right? And this is for someone that trains 5 days per week for a 1-hour session. You can expect to be hurt maybe once every 1 to 2 years, alrighty? And over here, we have some of these specific rates for each individual strength sport. So you can see Strongman, somewhere between 4.5 to 6.1 injuries per every 1,000 hours of training. Powerlifting is 1 to 4.8. Olympic weightlifting, 2.4 to 3. Bodybuilding, surprisingly, is very, very low, 0.24 to 1. CrossFit is going to be around 3.1, and that, again, really depends on the study. There's been a few out there so far. If you compare the injury rates to something like American football, that has 9.6 injuries for every 1,000 hours of training, you can see a lot of these strength sports are actually surprisingly low as far as the amount of injuries they produce, right? And as far as the research, if you guys want to go back and read these studies where I drew this from, I tried to keep all these citations below at the bottom of the slide, all right? So go back and read those if you really want to learn more, okay? Here's the other thing. Most of us as coaches and trainers, we aren't doing just powerlifting. We aren't doing just Olympic weightlifting. We're not seeing people that are just interested in CrossFit. Some of us are, but not all of us, all right? A lot of our clients, a lot of our athletes just do recreational weightlifting. They do things like aerobic dance classes, right? Like jazz classes, like Zumba classes. We're recreational runners. We do recreational basketball, recreational racquetball. I thought this study was pretty appropriate because it was looking at the amount of studies in this population. So what I would consider someone who just goes to the gym and likes to work out, right? What I think is important to tell you first is that these injuries were based on something called time loss. So if someone lost time from their recreational activity due to some sort of pain problem or injury, that was called an injury, and it was labeled a time loss injury, okay? So when they're defining an injury in these studies, it's basically someone that just has to take time away from doing what they enjoy in the gym, right? And if you look at recreational weightlifting, so just going in the gym and lifting weights, you've got about 4.5 to 5.5 injuries per every 1,000 hours of participation. And to be honest, that's actually quite low when you compare the weight training to other forms of exercise. So as far as aerobic dance goes, this is kind of all over the map, but somewhere between 4 and 12 injuries per every 1,000. The injuries jump up for running, so around 11 injuries. Basketball jumps up again, and racquetball is similar to basketball. So if you start looking at the injuries that are seen in the gym, weight training injuries are actually fairly low. And then some of these dance classes may be a little bit higher. And then when we start getting some more impact activities like running, basketball, and racquetball, the risk of injuries just goes up a little bit more, all right? Again, if you want to read the study some, I left the citation down at the bottom so you can check that out if you'd like.